Hey friends, welcome back to the Gubba Homestead. I'm Gubba, and today we are going to be discussing what is going on in the world of homesteading. I am seeing so many homesteaders quit, give up, they're talking about how they're moving on, and they are sharing their reasons for doing so. So we're going to discuss what they are saying, but I am also going to share what I think is the root of the problem and what is really going on. Before we get started, make sure to sub to the channel so you never miss another new homestead video. And if you're interested in learning how to nourish your skin and get glowing skin, you can check out my tallow, which I make here on the homestead in small batches from locally sourced, grass-fed, and antibiotic-free beef fat. Pretty cool. Recently on Twitter, or X, I saw a post of someone sharing how these homesteaders here on YouTube made a video of how they were quitting homesteading. I went over and watched because I was curious. I homestead, why are they quitting? Because homesteading has become such a trend, especially in the last 4 years when we saw COVID and then all the empty grocery stores and people saying, hey, this is kind of crazy. What am I doing depending on a grocery store when I could be learning how to grow my own food, learning how to bake and cook from scratch, learning how to have a food storage, which I have a course to teach you how to build a food storage. So during the collapse, I would say, of 2020, people started moving to these rural areas and picking up homesteading. People were really craving this. And I also get a lot of messages from people saying, you're living my dream life, I want to homestead. My message is, you can homestead from anywhere, but we will get to that. I went and watched this video, and these people were saying how they were up and moving to another country, and they went through their homestead and some things that they have done. One thing that they had mentioned was that the animals always need attention, whether it's cold outside, hot outside, the weather is horrible. They always need attention and things go wrong. Yes, absolutely. So I was watching this like, okay, yes, that's kind of a given. Another one was, they were like, yeah, and this is really gross. They had some chicken cleanup that they were doing from their coop, and yeah, this is icky. Yes, I feel like that's also a given. Animals are animals. And then they were also discussing how it is all the time and they weren't ready to commit and they can't really leave their homestead. And so that is all those reasons are part of the reason that they were moving on and moving to another country, because they weren't ready to commit. I also saw another person sharing how they were quitting homesteading for similar reasons. Basically how they could never leave their homestead. There's always something going on. Always, the weeds are always growing no matter how many times they go and pick the weeds. And they mentioned that there is always a project going on in the homestead, and so they were overwhelmed and they were tired of it. I saw on Instagram somebody sharing how they just fell out of love with their homestead. They were no longer happy to go out to the animals or go down to the creek, and it just felt like a big burden. I saw a similar story again on Instagram. Somebody was sharing they just fell out of love. They didn't love their animals anymore. They did not have that same passion for when they moved there. When they moved there, they had the rainbow glasses on and everything was so great, and now they didn't have that feeling anymore. In all of these instances, I try not to be judgmental. I feel like as humans, it's a natural tendency to judge, well, why would they think that? Like, that's pretty obvious. Or so just accepting that these people, everybody's entitled to their own feelings and that's how they feel. But dissecting the issue of what is really going on. So many people are already dropping out after there was this huge trend into homesteading. And if you look into the homesteading niche, as I've said, has already blown up in these past few years. And what I think one of the reasons we are having this burnout, I would say, of homesteading is unrealistic expectations. When people are tuning into homesteaders like Ballerina Farm, again, no hate, no judgment, but it's perfect and the aesthetic is perfect and the kids and the farm is clean and they have a big dairy and everything's going on, and you're like, wow, I want that. And I totally believe that you can have that, but you have to be realistic. This person is a billionaire, lots and lots of money. They have farm hands. Somebody saw her in the airport and she had 3 or so nannies, I believe. So there is a lot of help going on. I'm here to tell you things do not run seamlessly on a homestead when it's just you or it's just you and your family. There is a lot of work. So I believe when people are looking into these very aesthetic homesteaders, they don't realize everything that is going on behind the scenes. Because I do it, I completely understand everything that is going on behind the scenes. Again, no hate to her. I think her videos are beautiful. I love the vibe, it's really cool. But it really does set up an unrealistic expectation that you're gonna have this little homestead vibe and you're gonna have a barn and the animals are gonna be easily milked every day. Trust me, that is not gonna happen if it's you outside milking. It's a lot more easier when you have people doing it for you. There's also other homesteaders I feel like set up unrealistic expectations, and I'm here to tell you, it is not easy. You're gonna have times when it is difficult. You're gonna have gross times when rotten eggs are exploding in your chicken coop and it smells so vile and you can't get out because you're cleaning the coop. Been there. And anyways, you're gonna have these scenarios that are difficult and they test you, and your trees that you just planted and put so much care into last year, you had a horrible spring and so they're coming back really funky. That's happening to me right now. You're gonna have a rodeo when you are out milking because your animals don't want to cooperate that day for whatever reason. They're just not feeling it. You're gonna have these days, all right? So when I'm watching these videos of especially the ones where, well, the animals need attention every day. Yeah, absolutely. When you take animals into your care, they depend on you. Night, day, snow, rain, hot sun, whatever, they are depending on you. So again, I feel like there's that disconnect, which I do talk about. We are disconnected from our roots. Our great grandparents inherently raised animals, knew how to take care of them. That's been lost. So when you go into this and you have no background, there's gonna be a learning curve. I can speak from experience. I did not grow up around animals. I did not grow up on a farm. I did not grow up homesteading. This is all my first experience with animals, and it is hard. Another thing that is underestimated when it comes to animals or just a homestead in general is the expense, because you're gonna have never-ending projects. And this comes from not having the farm hands and millions of dollars. You're gonna have never-ending projects that constantly require your attention. Whether it's fencing that you gotta build for the animals, whether it's a chicken coop, whether your septic goes out, whether your well pump goes out. You need to build garden boxes, you need garden hosing, you need to plant plants that you want to do for your garden, and then something completely wipes out your entire garden, or you're building like there's constant projects, there's unknowns that are going to go wrong. So those really can be dreadful when they happen and can be a huge setback. And so I understand when I see videos of people saying, oh, well, I've fallen out of love and I don't love my animals anymore, and I don't love going down to the creek, I don't have a passion for my homestead. I understand, because those things can be big setbacks, they can be big heartbreaks, but I still haven't gotten to the real reason of why I think all of this is happening. These are all just things that are contributing. We have the unrealistic expectations, which I do feel is a ginormous one. We have heartache and setback when things are going to happen, and it is super stressful. So stressful. Okay, look at me. Stressful when things constantly go wrong. So again, having those realistic expectations, and especially if you're the one who has to go and fix them or figure out how to fix them, and maybe you don't know your neighbors, and maybe you don't know your community, and that is a difficulty in and of itself. The harder the reason, I believe, why so many people step into homesteading and then quickly exit is because, one, it really isn't their passion. They think they want to do it until they get into it, and it's hard. Once it's hard, they do not have the endurance to see it through. So again, the unrealistic expectations may lead some people into it. It's hard, and then they don't have the endurance to see through these hardships. I'm telling you right now, I believe anybody can homestead. You can homestead from where you're at. You don't want to dive head in, so then you lose the passion for it. Have that passion, whether it's just for having a sourdough starter in your kitchen, whether it's just cooking from scratch, making tortillas from scratch, whether it's fermenting foods or making a ginger bug, or doing these small things. These things will add up, and it's easy to become overwhelmed. Things are going to be hard and you need to have endurance to see it through. So you have to be selective about what you want to do. And I've learned that. I dove head in. I got a milk cow, way too much for me and my homestead at the time. Had to rearrange. Got goats. Goats have had their own difficulties dealing with parasites, fencing, figuring them out, but I'm learning. Like I said, if you've never done this before, it is going to be a learning curve. But once you get your feet in the water, that's how you start to learn. But you need to have that endurance to see it through. I understand though, if you lose passion, why would you want to stick it out? For me, that's hard because this is my passion. I love homesteading. I love my animals. Just my whole heart is here. And that is another reason why people were mentioning it's so difficult, because you can't leave. It's extremely difficult to leave, and I've discussed this before. I've been very upfront about it. It's hard to leave because, especially when my animals are in milk, because they need to be milked out every day. That's my responsibility. It's difficult for me to leave in the winter because my house is heated with wood, and if I'm not there to heat it, then I'll come home to burst your pipes because my house is going to freeze. So it's extremely difficult. Could I set up systems to leave? Maybe get a heating system, a functional one? Yes, I could, but that's not my priority right now. I have so many other projects going on that need my attention that I can get by with a wood stove. I love my wood stove. My goats who I milk, could I find somebody to milk them? Yes, but again, this is where my animals are my responsibility. We have a system. I would not feel comfortable leaving them with someone who maybe wouldn't know how to quite milk them out or quite do the system. It would just make me worry, and that's who I am. So I hardly ever leave. When I say I hardly ever leave, maybe a few weekends a year to see family. My family loves to come out and see me. My family also watches the farm whenever I leave and I'm not seeing family. So I get that. If you like to travel, this is going to be a real tough one for you. Unless, again, you have lots of resources, you have farm hands, you have people who can help you or people you can trust to help you. It depends what you have. If you don't have milking animals, it's easier to leave. If you have an irrigation system for your garden, it's easier to leave. But again, you could get somebody to come and water your garden. But I get it. If you want to travel, if you can't sit in one place for a long time, good luck. Going back to all this, my homestead is my passion. I have put so much work into it. I love being here. Whenever I leave, I'm not very happy. I really am not. Like, this is my joy. This is my love. This is me. So I get it. If people start homesteading and it doesn't become a part of them, it's easier to leave and you start seeing all the negatives. And there's a lot of downfalls and negative sides, and if you don't have that passion, that's what you're gonna see. Behind me is my cow milk stanchion that I built when I got my cow Moo, and that was a learning experience. I got my cow, completely overwhelmed myself. She had twins. She was amazing. I love her. She was such a learning experience for me, but in a great way, because I learned that my homestead and me are not quite equipped for a cow, and goats are much better for what's going on. So this was learning, and I can see it was completely overwhelming for me. It was stressful for me at times, but you endure through. And I can't think of how, with all that stress that I went through, and then during that time, my septic completely went out, my well piping had to be redone, and I couldn't use water for, I forget how long, it might have been a few weeks. So that was really stressful. And again, I had just really moved in. I didn't know all this stuff. I didn't know how wells or septics and my house really well. And that was so stressful. So don't give up wherever you are at. If you have a passion for this, run with it. When you have those hard times, endure through it. You can see the other side, and you're going to get to the other side and you're going to be like, wow, I'm so happy I stuck through that because I learned so much. And then you can turn around and you can help others. Don't get unrealistic expectations. Do not look at the aesthetics and be like, wow, that looks so easy, because it's not. The video that I just had of the helping one of the babies on my homestead from my herd, that mom, the very next day I shared this on Instagram, she almost died. I went out there, she was facing the wall in the corner, not eating, just no appetite, and I knew immediately something was wrong. This is my first time encountering a sick goat in that manner. So I hit the ground running. I had to figure out what was going on. I have a holistic goat book, looked up her symptoms. Turns out she most likely had milk fever, which is rare in goats. Milk fever is where they have hypocalcemia, so they're coming into all this milk and their calcium drops. And that is exactly what was happening to her. I had to give her a shot of nutrients, vitamin B12, I believe it was. And then I gave her some Nutrigenches with a bunch of nutrients and just like pumped her system full of nutrients to help her get through this. Molasses water, I made up an electrolyte water for her and was drenching her with it, which is where you have a little drench, mouth drench, you put the electrolyte water in it or the Nutrigench and you put it in her mouth, and I was blasting in. I found some leaves that she would eat, and so I fed her and I prayed because yeah, this was not good, because if she fell even more into hypocalcemia, she would have died. So there's these instances that you run through, but now I ran into it and I realized, okay, preventatives, I reached out to some goat mentors and I could have been giving some Tums to help with the calcium after giving birth because of all of her milk coming in. Some goat people do that, some don't. So it's a continual learning experience. I've had so many things go wrong with my house. Like I've mentioned, the septic, I think I even did a video on that when it was happening, and the heating system, and just a plethora of things. I've done a lot of work to my house because of what was needed. So I came into that, and when I came into the property, it was kind of a disaster. There was a lot of stuff everywhere, just lots of garbage. So you just have to like see through the other side. What do you want it to be? And go and make it that. And there might be a huge hill between what you want it to be and what it is. And if you're going up the hill and you get stressed out or things happen and you fall back and you don't have that endurance to keep going, you're never gonna see what it is on the other side. So keep going. That's what I think is going on and why so many homesteaders are tapping out, because it is overwhelming. The weeds constantly grow. They do, and if you're not picking them, you're just gonna have a ton of weeds. The animals constantly need something. Whenever I walk outside, the goats start screaming. They just scream for me. It's kind of funny. I find it funny, but sometimes it is overwhelming. I walk outside and they see me. So that could be overwhelming. I have a lot of dogs who are constantly getting into something, or something is going wrong, and I'm always keeping tabs on them. I have GPS to always see where they're at because I would not want them to get out and something to happen to them. There's a million things going. Don't have unrealistic expectations. Build up some endurance and start where you are at. I actually have a homesteading guide that can teach you how to start homesteading wherever you're at. Don't overwhelm yourself. Find what you're passionate about and run with it. So thank you so much for tuning in today, diving into what is going on in the homesteading community. I know that you can homestead. Don't give up. Just keep going, see to the other side, climb that mountain, have some endurance, and I'll see you guys next time.